Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller. Our co-host, the real reason the floodwaters didn't affect the pitch this week, the one man, Hoover Dam himself, Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
Good. How are you, Rich?
I'm all right. I'm this cold is still sort of malingering around, but I'm sans lozenge. I'm going to brave it this week, and we'll see how we go. I think we'll be all right. I think we'll survive. No breaking who's to cover, particularly this week, so we can dive straight into the game against Swansea.
Mm-hmm.
So a fun lineup again. Every week we await the team with trepidation now.
And seemingly, have we? Here's an interesting question. Have we since kind of Monk's inception, Monk coming in? I say Monk's inception like he was invented in the lab, like he was cloned. Have we actually seen like a set kind of first 11?
It's a good question. I think we've seen the same team twice or maybe three times, but a big part of that I would say has been injuries rather than choices. I feel like the hand's been forced more often than it's been a bold choice made, but maybe I'm wrong in that.
Well, there is also definitely, and I'm sure, to come out of the platitude that all managers say, it is a squad, it is a squad game and squad players. I guess the interesting thing, and especially with going into October's Player of the Month, Morgan Fox, a player who we kind of thought was kind of sidelined, and also one that I do think is a little bit harsh that Odebajo has missed out. We didn't really see what was on the training ground or any reason or any justification as to why kind of Fox came in. We wondered whether Fox kind of came in because he is a deceptively tall man. He's like Tom Lees. He doesn't look 6'1" or six foot, whatever he is. So I wondered if like Fox kind of came in for height, but yeah, since then, I mean, that kind of felt like an almost settled back five, I'd probably say. Or we have an idea of a settled back five. I mean, now the interesting thing is Burner and Iorfa looked a great centre back pairing. Now there's illness on 2 weeks out of the last three for Julian Burner.
Yeah, he's not taking to the English winter particularly well.
And now, so Iorfa and Lees came in for Iorfa.
He did.
Sorry,
and then
Lees came in for Burner. Sorry, excuse me.
Yes, and then the immediate question is which one of them, both being right-footed centre backs, which one's going to play out of position? And it turned out it was Tom Lees playing the left side of that centre back pairing. By and large, I think Iorfa was kind of following Ayew around and Lees holding the centre a bit more. So it wasn't a typical kind of left-right pairing at centre back. But still, when they were up in their standard positions, that's how they stood.
And then with a funny kind of look at this, I mean, really the defence has, ironically, probably been the most defined out of all the kind of 3 or 4 kind of position areas you kind of look at, from goalkeeper, defence, midfield to strikers. And then, you move on to midfield. And so Bannon's been back for a couple of games now, following kind of a niggle.
Yep.
So we've opted to go with Kieran Lee in the middle of the park. No Hutchinson.
There was no Hutchinson in the squad at all, so he's got an issue. With Longo having an issue.
Yeah, and still no action mass around.
So we go from having lots of options in midfield to having 3.
To very few, yeah. And then this was seemingly, we didn't see. Did we even see a little Joey P on the bench?
He was on the bench. I don't think he warmed up at all during the game. So
yeah,
felt like he was very much there to make up numbers, and maybe rightly so after his corner taking debacle. Sometimes you need to sit one out and have a think.
I guess the interesting thing, especially looking at last week at Blackburn, none of those centre mids covered themselves in any amount of glory.
No.
So I guess looking at those centre mid positions, I can be a little bit surprised at who's starting, who played outside of Bannon, obviously. But yeah.
It's one of those midfields, especially against a team riding high, as Swansea City were and are doing. You immediately worry a little bit about who's going to be doing the defending in that duo.
Yeah. And I mean, that's an interesting thing. I think we kind of look at, I think for any sense of any element of formation, or at least how we set up and how the players that we have at Wednesday, it doesn't look like we kind of have a complete formation that kind of ticks all the boxes. We're not clinical enough up front or have the goals from midfield to go over 4-3-3 and be confident that we're going to score lots of goals. The 4-4-2, I thought this was one of the better 4-4-2s. I think it's the best 4-4-2 I think I've seen from Wednesday in quite a while. I'll be honest. There were just other shortfalls that kind of went down against it for numerous reasons we can get onto. But, definitely we had a lot more kind of striking firepower with this 4-4-2, and we did a lot more kind of work up front. But obviously the sacrifice there is that we sacrificed someone in the middle, which, as you've said, who's going to really do defensive work from Bannon and Kieran Lee?
I think it was a bit of a tale of two halves with those two. So the first half, they tried to keep Bannon in his new forward, right up front, sort of one of the 3 or 4 players attacking, and it didn't quite gel. Although the team played well, that midfield 2, quite often there was nobody where we needed somebody, and there was 2 of them where we needed nobody, kind of thing. And it wasn't, they didn't fall into a natural rhythm until I think the second half. They reverted more to how they would have played that first year under Carlos together, which is Bannon sitting deep and sort of playing quarterback, trying to find those spaces, and Kieran Lee actually being the one up with the attackers, trying to time late runs into the box and make things happen that way. And that was a big part of most of our successes in the second half. I think Kieran Lee was directly or indirectly involved, and obviously played a part in recycling the ball from Reach's shot to allow Forestieri to score. So that was just an example. It felt at times like we had the old Kieran Lee back, which we were sort of lamenting that maybe that was something we should stop worrying about last week. But this, I thought he sort of came alive second half, seemed to have a bit more confidence, seemed to have a bit more sort of pep in his step, and a bit more pace about his game. He just seemed to have a bit more drive and determination to the way he was playing, which was really nice to see.
And so just to kind of switch back to the lineup, I do want to keep talking about Kieran Lee, because it's a fun thing to talk about from this game. But we've decided to drop Reach for Murphy. That was kind of surprising, but maybe deserved. I think Reach hasn't been up to the standards this season. Maybe a bit lackluster. I imagine if you probably ask Gary Monk about it, he'd probably say it was something tactical to go with Murphy. I mean, actually, Murphy had a better impact at Blackburn with his goal, and had a bigger impact in the 18 minutes he was on the pitch than Reach did. Or was it the switch for Reach coming on for Murphy last week? I can't remember, but if it was, anyway, Murphy had a much better impact in a shorter time. Let me pull that. And then up top, Fletcher and Big Dave.
Fletcher and Big Dave. Yeah, that was the change. Sorry, last week, just to confirm that. So that was a significant change, and I think Murphy's had some all right performances, and by and large he's had fairly anonymous performances for us. But it was, I think it's fairly safe to say that was his best performance in a Wednesday shirt yesterday.
Definitely, I would definitely agree. Probably since, but mind you, I mean, we maybe wonder as to whether his debut game was it against Barnsley, where he scored in the early minutes.
I mean, he scored with his first touch, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he still had he was a little bit slowish in terms of performance in the start in that kind of game, even though he scored.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the best games I think he's had for us.
I would agree, but I do distinctly remember saying that, maybe because of the kind of adrenaline dump of scoring, he seemed to take a little while to actually get going in that Barnsley game after his goal. So even then, it was a bit of a mixed bag. Despite a fantastic start but I think literally his first touch for Sheffield Wednesday being a goal against local rivals Barnsley. But yeah, I think that was the one. Looking at the team sheet, you sort of think, okay, good luck with this in terms of Murphy starting. But he did his job. He worked pretty hard coming back. He until he got tired late on. he was really doing the work, helping Palmer out, going backwards as well. So that's definitely something he neglects to do more often than not, or has done so far in a Wednesday shirt. So that was nice to see. And he looked pretty dangerous. He probably should have come away with a goal. I mean, it was a sitter that he hit against the post in the second half.
He struck it well, but it was...
yeah, that sort of cliche was almost too well, wasn't it? If he'd spuffed it probably goes in. He got a very clean strike on it, but yeah, if it had kind of rolled off his foot, it probably would have just tinkled over the line. He had a good effort first half as well on his right foot from a set piece routine. His corners were pretty good on the whole.
His corners were decent, yeah. I was quite impressed with Murphy's corners. He made a really, really good contribution yesterday.
Oh, no, it was good to see. Conversely, Harris I'd say probably till about the hour mark was having his worst game in a Wednesday show. Certainly the worst game I've seen live. He just couldn't get anything going, and he looked kind of sluggish and like you're sort of second guessing himself a bit. There was one point where the ball broke to Bannon, and it was probably like 3-on-3 in the break or 3-on-4. And you're just looking and you think like Harris is going to take Norton for a run here and probably beat him. And that's an easy pass for Bannon to play over the top. And he doubled back to the halfway line rather than have the leg race. And it's like, that was, I think a couple of weeks ago, he would have just gone for it, tried to put himself in the space and probably get a shot on goal from it.
But how much of that do you think is, I think we've talked about recently where, we've had these two kind of wing options and we've chosen to really attack down one side. I remember the game against Middlesbrough, it was all down the right. And we were focusing a fair bit down the right. I mean, a lot went, through Murphy on the right there.
It's a little bit chicken and egg because obviously they were certainly, in the most obvious way, they were doubling and tripling up on Harris. They were... at all times there was two players there, and then sometimes there was a third player sort of entering his little corner of the pitch. But we've kind of become used to that, and he tends to be able to rise above it and still make things happen. I just think until late on in the second half, where he'd really worn Norton down, he just struggled to make anything of the opportunities he had. I think you're right. It's fair to say they were few and far between, but I've got fairly used to him doing well when he gets given those opportunities. And just in the Swansea game, it took until that second half for him to start making the most of those gaps he saw, and obviously he played a part in that Murphy chance where he hit the post. That was Harris's cross that started everything.
Yeah, it was his classic kind of lovely step over and stood up cross.
Yes,
kind of went back in, and then Fletcher met that one really well as well.
He did. Fletcher could have had a couple.
Well, obviously he hit the post in the first half as well. That was a big.
Actually, he should have had three, shouldn't he? Yeah, because he had two that headed straight at the goalkeeper, and he hit the post with the other. Yeah.
And was it the Bannon corner that kind of drifted in completely unmarked, and he ran onto it and gave it was quite a tame header. I think he kind of met it both.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you want to? How do you feel we should break down this game? How are we going to cut up the Swansea pie?
I think most people have sort of. I think most people seem to have zeroed in on the first 20 minutes as being particularly good for Wednesday.
I guess this is the giant kind of conversation: is how much of this is stroke of misfortune, how much of this is just not being clinical, or maybe it's option C, which is a bit of A and a bit of B. Like I thought we were good, we did very well, but again, you're still watching as a Wednesday night, and I hate to kind of be as jaded as I do doing this podcast, and maybe just being a Wednesday night in general. But how much of this you thinking we don't score, it's going to hurt us. This is the point. This is the time to score and to get ahead. That's
one of those that I think it's not just Wednesday. That's football, isn't it? We talk about scoring when you're playing well. I think it had tones of the Fulham match about it, this one from fairly early on, in that once again, it must be quite frustrating for Monk to be the Wednesday manager at this point in time, because I think he keeps pulling rabbits out of hats in terms of getting us set up and organised to play a certain way, to not to negate the strengths of the opposition, but to push our strengths on the opposition. Just as we did against Fulham, just as we did here. I think we did the same thing to Cardiff, and at times we did it to Leeds. So he's kind of done his bit. You know, they've watched the tape, they've spotted the things, they've got it across to the players, and then we just miss chance after chance after chance.
I thought it was remarkable that I was kind of just doing a little tally in my head of all the games you mentioned, and I'm like, all of those games are draws.
Yeah. And I don't think we scored first in any of them.
Yeah, and what else am I going to say? The interesting thing is, you know, when Monk kind of came in from the time of the Bullenberries, which I can see clearly now that the Belena's gone, as you said previously, Rich.
Yes.
You know, all we did was win and lose. There were no draws.
Yeah.
I don't think we picked up a single draw.
No, I think you're right. It was 3 losses and 3 wins, wasn't it? That was Bullen's 6 games.
Yeah. And we almost kind of pined for some of those losses to be draws.
It is tricky because, like you say, it's a bit of being unlucky, but I think by and large it is a lack of clinical. I wonder how different the Swansea game looks if we had Luongo, because I do think I'm wary that in his absence he's building this incredible reputation. Certainly in my mind, he's become the answer to so many conundrums. And still, I don't have that countdown teapot. Is it Massimo Luongo? No, it's not. Okay, sorry. This was a maths problem, Richard. Okay, yes.
Oh, very good.
But yes, he's that midfielder that seems to have a bit of extra composure. But I did think yesterday Murphy showed a bit of that. He showed a bit of danger in front of goal that I don't think Harris particularly has. Reach intermittently is devastating when he's given time and space, but he rarely scores just normal goals.
Yeah.
But Luongo, his 2 finishes have been perfect in that they've been just kind of meat and potato goals.
It's almost like, I mean, especially I think in both situations, they're both finishes that you would kind of expect a striker to make.
Yes.
They're your classic kind of number 9. He's going to wrap this up in a very textbook fashion.
But weirdly, I wouldn't expect Nuyu or Fletcher to score either of them.
No, and that's the funny thing. You mentioned kind of strange goals. I think in previous regimes I've said about Fletcher is that all of his goals are slightly exceptional.
Yeah.
In terms of the finish, he doesn't finish the easy ones particularly convincingly.
No.
And I can't remember the last time he's had a goal or 2 like that. I mean, he's had a few, but I think all of the goals I think about so far in the shining moments of, you know, Fletcher at Wednesday are largely just, you know, this is a goal that really showcases his talents.
I mean, yeah, I think yesterday is a classic case in point in that he had the sort of chances that a striker begs for. You know, 3 clean headers between the goalposts.
And just, he doesn't have the ball with any great conviction, which I've said from that chance, you know, with the Bannon corner that kind of drifted on.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'd think there'd be a little bit of extra something that someone could meet that with a bit more power. And then he's had a kind of very delicate, kind of artful, delicate glancing header that went onto the post. Probably not a situation you kind of meet that with any great power, maybe. And maybe you do want to kind of try and glance that one in. I think that is in his approach, that was probably about the right thing to do. Yeah. And then for the Murphy one where he funded it against the post, Fletcher met that incredibly well and did the thing that you're supposed to do.
Headed it down,
which is always great. But it was just straight at the keeper.
I know, exactly. Yeah, the 2 of them was just dead straight on for the keeper, which is it's frustrating.
One thing I'm wondering about, one thing I think is definitely, I think one area, I think this result is very much a testament to how Wednesday are a mid-table side. We're a mid-table side. We can pull off some great performances. We can go and we can shit the bed at Blackburn. You know, it's all on our paint palette. You know, all these tools. but seemingly we intend to put some nice colours that we paint on the canvas. But sometimes, in terms of Blackburn, it's just a big poo paint that we paint up on the canvas instead.
It's that sort of outsider art that people that
sure. So
people that smear their own feces over canvases and then get applauded for their what a statement to make.
Exactly.
It actually speaks to society. Actually, aren't we all actually daubing a canvas in our own feces? Actually,
I think we are.
Sorry.
I think we are. So the thing I was going to say was, in terms of look, in terms of unluckiness, especially because Gary Monk was, and this is, Gary Monk is going to say this because A, he's Gary Monk, and B, is a football manager, and they've got to kind of spin their own yarn and their tales. And some do it in quite respectful ways, and some do it in very blatant, very crappy ways. See Neil Warnock and Billy Davis from previous games. You may remember such previous pantomime villains as Billy Davis and Neil Warnock. The point I was going to say was, in terms of luckiness, I think it is a mix. Were we lucky in front of goal? I don't think so. I thought it was purely lack of clinicism. The thing I want to say was that, actually, one of the things I think we'll get on to is the performance of our goalkeeper, Kieran Westwood. One thing I think I kind of saw from the game, and then also kind of looking back, was their goalkeeper wasn't very good.
Oh,
I think he lived a bit of a charmed life, and that's the area which I think that we were a bit unlucky.
Yeah, maybe.
I didn't think he was particularly convincing a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And I think if we'd actually exercised a bit more testing him, we would have had a few more goals, and this would have been a different result.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to look at him and go, oh, he did badly, when our goalkeeper has played a massive.
Well, that's probably, and hey, this is probably the element of us being Sheffield Wednesday fans and doing a Sheffield Wednesday bias podcast and looking at every game with our Sheffield Wednesday tainted glasses on, the ones that we got from the club shop, with little Aussie owls on them and all this type of stuff.
Blinker wigs.
Yeah. We're just looking like regular Elton Johns, aren't we, Rich? At the games. But yeah, I mean, it's probably going to seem hypocritical to say their goalkeeper was bad when Kieran Westwood, once again is just pulling the rabbit he pulls out of his hat. His hat is his poo-smeared rabbit. And
It's a lot of excrement today. Do you need the toilet, Luke?
No, I'm good. I've gone. But, maybe I'm literally scatterbrained. I have scat on the brain. Maybe it's the whole thing.
I think you might be right. What their goalkeeper, what I noticed about their goalkeeper was, by and large, he was passing the football out from the back, normally with reasonable success. So they knew that Ayew wasn't going to win any headers against Iorfa. So as the game went on, increasingly they passed it a bit shorter into Iorfa to get into Ayew to let him get on the ball. That's the sort of thing we never have available to us because we don't have a goalkeeper that can pass a football. I thought he did well with a couple of reactive saves. So you're right that Fletcher did head the ball straight at him, but he did head it down low and powerful, and the goalkeeper still did a pretty decent job with that. And he also saved from that weird deflected shot that Murphy had in the first half fairly convincingly. So I think you're probably right. He didn't look brilliant, and the fact that he spilled that reach shot, which should have been very, very easy just to gather up as a goalkeeper. It wasn't massively quick. It wasn't curling hugely. It was a pretty tame shot along the ground. He should have saved it and held it, but we got a chance out of it, and he didn't get up quick enough to stop the goal going in. So yes, probably not a great goalkeeper. I think I'd agree. But also, yeah, he was definitely the best goalkeeper on the pitch yesterday.
Yeah, but again, yeah, I don't know. And then the interesting thing looking at Kieran Westwood is Kieran Westwood pulled off two, I think actually maybe three very, very good stops.
I remember the one late on before the corner.
The one that led to the corner, basically
equalised. Yeah, that was
we celebrated. I mean, I think
they had a little kiss with Fox. They went nose to nose. It was a great time. We were all happy.
Well, yeah, and this is definitely leads down the path of game management, which largely for most of Monk's reign we've been pretty good so far, or been better at, I should say.
That was so. Well, let's not skip ahead to that bit, but that was one of the most bizarre periods of football, even for Wednesday. It was just baffling. But so obviously. So after
we're going to let's look at we've got the course of the Swansea pie, but the Swansea pie is made up of a starter pie, a main pie, and a dessert pie.
It's like a Four Seasons pizza. But
yes.
Pie
Quattro.
Yes.
Quattro Stagioni, or that's
yes, the Quattro Stagioni, yeah.
Yeah, just a trio of Stagioni.
More of a Swansea accent, you know? Quattro Stagioni. But
and then sorry, there's something on my mind, Rich. I really want to share.
Okay.
I really want to get out.
Is it Memphis?
Why in North America do they call mains entrees?
Oh, it's one of the stupidest things.
It is. It's up there with Americans pronouncing roof rough
and saying could care less.
Yes. I was saying this last night to a friend of mine. Like, saying you could care less, it means there's a large spectrum of what you can care for.
Yes.
It doesn't tell me anything about. It doesn't say fucking anything. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad. I had an argument with someone who I also respect as a very intelligent friend of mine, and he was defending could care less, and I felt like throwing him out the window.
But I wouldn't do that.
I can't even imagine a defence of could care less.
We would have shipped a lot more goals if our defence could care less. Though the spectrum of where they cared yesterday was maybe another question completely.
So
anyway, the starter pie.
The starter pie. Well, people say we were the better team for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Then Fletcher hitting the woodwork, hitting the post, that happened in the 29th minute. So for me, I thought that was all part of a piece where we were the better. I think we were the better team pretty much until they scored.
Completely.
That was my feeling. So I don't think it was like 20 minutes of us being good and then 10 minutes of them being brilliant.
I don't think there was any great. Swansea definitely looked a very, very good side. Or they looked a very good side. Maybe I've used a very too many. One very too much.
No, but it's that nice mixture of very experienced players and some really promising youngsters. Because you've got people like Nathan Dyer who've kind of been there, seen it, done it, but still look.
That's the funny thing. You've got a few players who probably aren't very old professional football players, but they feel like they're players because they broke through at a young age. They get to the late 20s and you get to the late 20s and you think, aren't you supposed to be drawing a pension at this stage? You know,
Dyer's 31, okay, but Routledge is 34.
Routledge is pretty old, I was going to say.
He's a pretty decent age. But I thought Chelina, Grimes looked really good. They're number 8, and that front kind of three that kept rotating round, they kept us on our toes all game pretty effectively. A lot of them looked very comfortable in possession. They do still. I don't know why teams kick off, other than Liverpool and Man City, kicking off into your own box. It doesn't seem to work in the Championship very well.
No.
It just invites huge amounts of pressure, and I don't think the players are good enough to deal with it very often. But they're one of the
think that even though we get older, we don't ever kind of graduate from being kids in the playground thinking, I saw this on Match of the Day, let me try and recreate it.
Oh, right. Oh, yes. Yeah, probably. Sorry, I just my footballing mentality when a defender's got the ball is get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
You're going to mess things up.
Send it long. Or, I was taught at a young age to basically, I was playing for Abbey Lane was my junior team, and I was at right back, and basically was told, just clear it, or put it into the trees, because we had some trees outside of the thing. So put it into the trees, basically.
I just remember Sturrock, I think it was Graham Lee, he was lambasting Paul Sturrock. He said the lad is 28 years old. That's a funny time to decide you're a footballer. Which is just tremendous. What a great chap Paul Sturrock was.
Yeah, that's pretty fantastic. Yeah.
So they scored pretty much out of nowhere, despite the fact they looked very comfortable on the ball. They weren't cutting us open and making loads of wonderful chances.
Probably being very attractive and kind of, they were trying to stroke it around and play it short. And you could definitely see kind of a lot of their talents in the game. And
they are one of those clubs that has that sort of director of football model where the manager is part of a wider team that's in charge of footballing affairs. So that means that Swansea has had an identity about their play since long before, since Monk was playing for them. And it still continues all these years later, despite the fact that they've been through probably 6 or 7 different managers in that time, and obviously personnel has changed drastically. But
yes, they have that kind of Southampton model of, like the Beyonce song, to the left, everything you own in the box to the left. There'll be another you in a minute. In fact, he'll be here in a minute.
Yeah.
Don't ever get to think that you're irreplaceable. So, because basically we've scoped out numerous managers in the future who we can replace you with.
Oh, it should definitely be called the Beyonce model. I'd love that at like an AGM. The board of directors of Cheltenham FC have decided to shift to the Beyonce model. From henceforth, all footballing affairs will be dealt with on a to the left, everything you want in a box to the left style. Oh, lovely.
Oh.
So there's a miscommunication between.
Well, let's kind of backtrack as well.
Okay.
So I was texting with, I think my oldest brother was at the game. I was watching here in the sunny beaches of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And
are you using sunscreen on these sunny beaches?
Always use sunscreen.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
That's what I learned from that hit song when we were teenagers.
Oh, yeah?
Always use sunscreen. And he was saying, like, I blame Fox. And I was like, did you blame Fox for the corner that was conceded, not the actual corner that we conceded the goal from? Because that was some real miscommunication, because they whipped a cross in, didn't they? And no one was on the end of it. But basically, Fox is like, what am I doing with this? Oh, and then he headed it over the bar. And then him and Westwood had a bit of afters, because Westwood was like, you didn't need to do that. There was, you could have left it.
Yeah, it's a deep cross. Fox is following it into the box, running towards his own goal, and feels like he's got to deal with it. The one who's got the picture there is Westwood. And sometimes when Westwood shouts, when he shouts he wants the ball and things like that, I can hear him at the back of the cop. I did not hear Kieran Westwood shouting that it was his ball or to leave.
Interesting.
It. Kind of thing. It's not always that you hear it, but when he shouts loud enough, you can hear it. That was not one of those occasions. So I don't know whether he did say something, but Fox needlessly headed it over the bar. Slightly more frightening than it needed to be, but he, from his point of view, I'm sure he just was thinking, well, I'm making sure, because he left a runner on his shoulder. He probably thought that person was going to follow him into the box. But they then had an argument all the way up to the corner going in, where Kieran Westwood came out, dropped it. Fox was off balance, so couldn't really clear it properly, and IU poked it into the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I guess the interesting thing was, I'm watching it with a very, obviously, Wednesday bias, and, John Pearson and Rob O'Neill doing the commentating. So I kind of watched that goal a few times. I've watched that goal a few times more than I've watched the second goal.
Okay.
Were there any fouls on Kieran Westwood? Because I wasn't sure about that. I think I eventually kind of concluded, I got the red string up on the board and did a lot of conspiracy theorist kind of connections. Bit of Pepe Sylvia from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I kind of came to the conclusion that there wasn't a foul on him, but it wasn't completely, Westwood wasn't completely free to get that.
The player that Westwood hits on his travels is Iorfa. Now, Iorfa is kind of bundled into by 2 Swansea players, so he's not where he would like to be standing. But it's very tangential if you're going to give a foul, and I'd be absolutely fuming if we'd had a goal disallowed in similar circumstances. The other factor is Kieran Westwood had it in 2 hands. So the bigger thing is, why didn't he just keep a hold of it?
I don't know if it was that. Can I ask a very basic kind of stupid question here, Rich? Because I think you're a man who has a lot more.
I love doing this podcast with you, Rich. You have a far better reading of things and football than I do. Let me just ask a very stupid question. What is the point of Westwood coming to get the ball, coming to try and collect the ball from a corner?
Oh, well, he clearly must think he can get it. He can sort of stop things happening. And I think keepers are very often criticised for not coming for things.
Yeah, and leaving it for defenders to try and defend, and
Yeah, but the thing is, the more I watch it, it's an absolute howler from the goalkeeper. He's just failed to catch it. It doesn't really matter what's going on underneath. Goalkeepers get away with murder in those situations. They jump with both their knees out and they just clear house and they take the ball. That's what you're supposed to do as a goalkeeper. And if somebody does have the audacity to stand their ground against you, guess what? You nearly always get a foul. But the problem with that is it's not nobody's touching Kieran Westwood's arms or hands. It's just a terrible flap at the cross.
Yeah, which is then making me think that
I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit blind by recent events, but when has Westwood been particularly great at that? Because he's been exceptionally poor in recent history.
I think you look at it's now becoming a thing. He is not dealing well with crosses. Set pieces.
No, he really isn't.
So the Millwall
and that was
goal,
we can definitely say that was the weakest part of his game yesterday, in the light of making 2, I think, 3 incredibly decent stops in the game. Like, he pulled off 3 very, very good saves, which a quality of keeper of the quality of Kieran Westwood you would expect to do. However, he still made 2 errors, which have conceded 2 goals, and they've both come from crosses. They both come from corners.
Yeah,
and he's flapped at both of them. And guess what? We conceded 2 exceptionally weak goals.
Yeah, well, I think I count the Millwall goal in amongst the 2 from yesterday, and I count the first Blackburn goal last week in the same. It's the same issue. It's all the same problem. He's just dealing with it in different ways. So Millwall, he half-heartedly follows the track of the ball. If he stands still, it's an easy save. But because he follows the track of the ball, he's completely out of position from a very basic tall man heading it back towards the goal. And that Blackburn goal is almost exactly the same goal. But it's worse because there was never even a hope of him getting the ball in that Blackburn scenario. It's literally a third of the penalty area away from him. He's getting nowhere near it. There's probably 10 players between him and the ball. So why he is moving towards it is unfathomable, especially for a keeper of his experience. So he follows the ball out, and lo and behold, when it gets flicked back, a high header from the tall guy at the back post. Same problem again. It just gets nodded in. This one, he tries to come out and deal with it. He obviously feels he can. I wonder whether he. So there's maybe an idea that he's being told to behave differently at these set pieces. Nicky Weaver we've got a new goalkeeping coach. We've got a whole new coaching team. Maybe he's being told to be more proactive when naturally he's a stay-at-home guy. We know from his international career, he loves to stay at home.
Oh, Rich Seinfeld, ladies and gentlemen.
What's the deal with Crowsford? But yeah, is it that we are now trying to teach an old dog new tricks, and this is the effect of that?
And this is the effect of doing it, is that the dog doesn't know.
Because
he's overthinking peeing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah. He's done.
I'm wondering in this situation. I mean, this is getting to the point where, this very much becomes like, I think previously how we've done with strikers at the club. We talked about, like, you remember the times when we saw, like, Paul Heffernan. Or the times we didn't. I should, like, let me rephrase this. The times we didn't see Paul Heffernan. Paul Heffernan kind of became this mystical figure, because he's someone that clearly had a history and could score some goals at that level, at League One level, when we signed him. But we never saw him. We didn't know if he was good enough in training. We didn't know, how he ranks up. But then the other strikers are misfiring, and it becomes like, well, surely Paul Heffernan's better than this.
Yes.
It becomes the appeal of the unseen reserve player. And I'm genuinely getting to the point, especially after this, I did see someone kind of maybe broach this kind of topic on House Talk, but is Dawson better than Westwood right now?
Oh,
Of all the limitations, so this is the thing, I think we can look at all three goalkeepers as a series of players with limitations, but I think the thing that we have to kind of admit, especially from the recent kind of two games, like, I don't know if we would have conceded. I don't think we would have conceded 2 goals yesterday if Dawson was in net. I think
No.
maybe just one. For the nature of what we conceded, I think Dawson's better at crosses.
it's clearly becoming a thing for him, because borderline the worst out of all. So the third goal is largely Westwood getting it wrong again, but it's maybe the worst out of all of them, because he's decisively going for that, but he gets nowhere near it.
Yeah.
He completely sells himself, and he has no impact on the play.
But this is, again, kind of falling into kind of the topic of what we're talking about and what you're bringing up is, me saying, is there any, asking the very basic and simple question of why is he being told to go for this? When I think he can't do much worse than be on the line.
No.
And I think a player with his reflexes that he's shown in the game could probably have a chance of saving some of these efforts.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And none of these were particularly, thunderous, quick, shots with any great velocity that were going in. There weren't any kind of rasping finishes where you're like, well, no one could have stopped that if he was in the place of it. They were all pretty kind of soft, tame kind of pokes goalward, some slightly quick pokes going towards the back of the net.
There's a very good chance with the first goal that Iorfa just heads it away if Westwood doesn't get involved. It's not like he saved it from somebody's head when he went to catch it.
That was a really interesting bit you said about Fox as well. Like, I can't remember, was it on the podcast that you said previously was, you and your sister were arguing about whether Fox cleared it. And she was adamant that Fox got to it, which didn't seem to happen.
No, yeah. But she thought that, I mean, it's just a shambles all round, isn't it? After Westwood drops it, but from my perspective, I thought Fox had kind of flicked it over his head on first viewing, and she thought he'd kind of kicked it against other Wednesday players, but it turns out Ayew was just he reacted quickest and took it decisively.
And Fox wasn't far off from I think what I felt that Fox kind of was a few milliseconds away from making a connection, which I don't know, maybe it still goes in the goal, or maybe it goes somewhere else. Who knows at that point? It's a bit of a lottery.
Absolutely. I think Fox, he's so off balance. He's trying to be cautious because he could at various moments, the most likely thing for him to do is to score an own goal. So he's trying to wait till he's got his weight kind of planted so that he can at least kick it straight up in the air. I think that's probably what would have happened if he connected. But yeah, just Ayew being a good striker, kept himself alive and awake and poked it home.
Mm-hmm. So that was pretty much the first half, I guess, right? If we think about that first goal that we conceded.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then coming out to the second, I think we almost picked up on some of that momentum that we had from the first, 20 to 30 minutes. We can argue on the timeline, but we seemed to come out fairly bright, I think.
We did, yeah. There was a really lovely bit of play where Kieran Lee very bravely won the header on the halfway line. And played it forward to Fletcher, who peeled in a lovely cross for Murphy, who was really, really close to at least asking the question of the goalkeeper. It was a really nice move. That was fair. That was basically straight from the out of the blocks. It was really good. It looked like we were right on it. It sort of showed that Kieran Lee was being more involved going forward, and Bannon was sitting back, and it almost paid immediate dividends. Then obviously Murphy, not too much after that, hit the post, and he really should have scored with that chance. That was a very, very good chance. It's one of those where the defenders and the goalkeeper are just waiting for it to go in. Basically, they can't really do very much. But it hit the post, hit the inside of the post, and bounced away. We then had a bit of a let off of our own because Wilmot had a header that's from another set piece that hit the post, and again I think we were all kind of just waiting for it to go in. It was a well taken header, and nobody really reacted. But by and large, we were the better team. But I think the fact we were pushing forward meant there were just more chances for Swansea on the break than there had been in the first half. We were pushing forward with a bit more verve and guile.
Mm-hmm.
That's where, Westwood made one of his good saves in that kind of period as well. The one where Ayew sort of swiveled and got his shot away. And Westwood
and he got down really incredibly well to his left. To make
fingertips save, really. So it was getting towards that period where, we'd had so many chances, we'd been so close so often. It was starting to feel like maybe it wasn't going to be our day in front of goal. We made a few changes. So Forestieri came on for Ati Nuhiu, which I think was a reasonably timed change, and sort of it made a lot of sense. How did you feel Nuhiu and Fletcher had done as a pairing?
I thought it did really well. I thought it was. I wanted to ask you, one of the things I thought about preparing a question to ask you, Rich, was how did you feel Nuhiu did on the spectrum of Nuhiu? I think Rich has a very deep spectrum of Nuhiu performances, as we've established in previous podcasts. But I thought this was one of his best appearances for quite a while. I think this is his best starting appearance that I've in recent memory.
I think it's the first time I've ever seen those two play together in the way that I feel is the most sensible for their talents. So normally what happens is they play together, but Fletcher does Fletcher. He does the all action target man thing, tries to win every header. And then you're left with Ati Nuhiu being a cumbersome, slow centre forward, and it doesn't work really. It doesn't suit Ati's skills because he's not involved in winning headers, and it does suit Fletcher, but it's like you sort of think, well, what's the point in having Ati Nuhiu there if Fletcher's going to do all the big man things? So, but this time made a bit more sense because Ati Nuhiu was the target man. And Stephen Fletcher was trying to be a striker, trying to be in the box more, and I think the fact he got those headers that we've talked about, maybe he should have done better with. The fact he got those chances was probably testament to the fact that he wasn't doing all of the work outside of the box. He was much more likely to be between the posts, waiting for crosses to come in. On another day, he probably should have had at least a goal out of those good chances he had. Another striker might well have had 2 or 3. So no, I thought it worked well. I thought Nuhiu had done well. I think my criticism would be just that almost anybody could have done Fletcher's role yesterday. The problem is you can't depend on Ati to be as good as he was yesterday. But if we knew we were getting that performance out of him every game, then I don't know if Stephen Fletcher is the natural partner for him, because it does free you up. You could have Winall, Rhodes, Forestieri, because Nuhiu is doing the thing where he's bashing the defenders and winning headers. So then the other player just really has to be part of the build-up and be a striker. And Forestieri at his best, Winall at his best, and Rhodes at his best, I'd say are probably better at that role than Stephen Fletcher is. Maybe. I don't know. This is all very speculative, but it's like in an ideal world where Ati Nuhiu always gives you what he gave us yesterday, then maybe Fletcher's not his ideal partner, because I think other people might be better at that role. But anyway, we made that shift. We took Ati Nuhiu off, so Fletcher reverted to being the all action target man that he that we know of, and Fletcher, the Forestieri sort of, he didn't play up top particularly, did he? He sort of.
But when does he ever play up top? In a weird way. Even when he plays up top, when does he ever play up top? So that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Yeah, but we then made the other change. Murphy had a very good performance. I think probably it was a little bit late in bringing him off, because I do think he'd well and truly run his race by about the hour mark, Murphy. But Murphy came off for Adam Reach, and then
would you have? Well, I guess it's that giant question. Do you think maybe Forestieri for Murphy might have made a bit more sense?
It's kind of what we ended up with not too long after Reach came on, because when Rhodes came on, Forestieri went out to the left wing anyway. Mm-hmm. So it kind of happened. It just happened 15 minutes later than maybe it could have. I don't know, because obviously Forestieri followed up the chance in a way that I've never seen Fletcher follow up a shot into the box that way. The only other player that tended to do that in previous seasons was Gary Hooper. So Reach came on, had a fairly immediate impact in that the first time he got the ball, he pushed past a couple of defenders, had a good shot low to the keeper's left, which he palmed out. And Kieran Lee did a great job recycling it, and Forestieri just popped away the tap in. So,
yeah, and every little bit of that I was really impressed with.
It had taken 81 minutes, but we finally kind of found a way to stop hitting the post and actually put it in the goal. We then proceeded with the sub that was going to happen before we scored, and took off Kadeem Harris and brought on Jordan Rhodes. Which I think it's fair to say I had mixed feelings about.
Who wouldn't? Genuinely. And
but
do you remember anything that Jordan Rhodes did in the game apart from? I think he did a quite. It wasn't a bad cross. I think he put it in from the right at one point.
Put it pretty. It's the best I've seen Jordan Rhodes play in a Wednesday shirt since probably his first or second game for us.
Yeah.
Now it's not high praise. We're talking, once again, we are kind of talking about, the veritable peanut in the turd. Just to bring us back to scatological matters.
To the poo theme I've been running through the episode.
Like a skiddy in some tighty whities.
Well, I mean, 2-2 does rhyme with poo-poo, let's be honest.
But I thought, for where Jordan Rhodes is in his career and his Wednesday life, I thought he put in a shift for us. I think he added something. I think Harris, he'd had a very frustrating game. Weirdly, I thought he was coming alive towards the end of the game, and I thought Norton had got much more tired than Harris was, and potentially he was just going to have a pretty fun time with him in that last 10 minutes. But whatever reason, I could see the justification of making the sub before we equalised. It's one of these where if you've handed in the paper, sometimes you can't actually take it back. Substitution. We've had that before previously,
right?
Where you're doing the throw the meat on the fire 1-0 down in the 85th minute sub, and then actually you do score and maybe you would rather draw it back. But anyway, we made the sub. I think Rhodes was busy. He led the line quite well, so he's always quite disciplined in trying to sort of play on the shoulder of the defender. So that was pretty useful. There was also a pretty decent opportunity. I'm blanking now. Was it Fletcher who scored the goal that was disallowed?
Yes. And actually, annoyingly, that was one which I didn't get to see because I think they were too busy showing the replay of the chance previously. So they just come back to say, he's offside.
Rhodes played a good part in that as well. And really, again, Fletcher shouldn't have been off. That is another thing, that another habit of Fletcher's is being constantly offside. And it's unbelievable how often he's offside. But yeah, so I thought Rhodes did all right when he was on. Certainly wasn't a negative in the way that he has been previous times.
Yeah.
And we kept our momentum. We kept on top of them. We then we got a corner, and it was a good corner in. I thought it was Rhodes who'd had the free header in the middle, but I'm told by the authorities that it was Iorfa that had the header. Either way, whoever had that header in the middle, it was a pretty bad header. But thankfully, we had the cultured, luscious left foot of one Morgan Alexander Fox.
Morgan Fox showing a better striking ability than Nuyu and Fletcher combined from this game.
Absolutely.
He really just absolutely rasped it down. It was just lovely. Hit it perfectly.
Great.
Yeah. It was some real it was some real Dennis Bergkamp finishing, wasn't it?
It was really very good. Yeah, really showed a lot of composure in that situation. That's a big moment, and he did really well.
Who knew that Foxy had shades of Marco van Basten in his locker?
And then he did a big ears celebration. I mean, he is player of the month. So I didn't know quite what the statement was there, because I think the general fan base has turned a corner on Morgan Fox, and
I hope so, and I hope we kind of carry on with
now.
this. You know, one of the funny things I thought from the game, and we're not going to do player ratings for Swansea players. So a player we were linked with in the summer, Jake Bidwell.
Oh yeah.
Who seemingly from all the reviews I think I heard previously when we were interested, was he's a very kind of so-so journeyman Championship left back.
Right, yes.
And I guess the funny thing is, I think previously we thought about, would he be an improvement on our left back options? And what I kind of felt from that game and kind of what I saw from Bidwell was he's okay, but he's no Morgan Fox.
He's no Morgan Fox. Absolutely. So then everyone lost their mind.
Everybody lost their minds. We had that chance, which again was an exceptional save from Westwood, point blank. I can't remember who it was.
Before that, it was like 3 or 4 awful dives by Swansea players in the box. And why the ref didn't give any free kicks for them, I have no idea. But even that, immediately preceding that good chance from Westwood, Ayew threw himself on the floor in front of the ref imploringly. And, again, he should have got a yellow for the blatantness of his dive. But play was allowed to carry on. Westwood made the save. Him and Fox had a little smoochy-woochy. And then from the set piece...
Everything went back to the playground.
Westwood dived into the mosh pit and forgot he was supposed to be a goalkeeper. He was the person on the edge of the mosh pit that can't quite get in. The one that they keep getting pushed out and they keep trying to get in.
Yeah.
It was so annoying to concede because we deserved to win, despite what the Swansea manager told the BBC. What a tool. Sheffield Wednesday deserved to win that match.
Yeah.
And it felt like one of those again where kind of everything conspired against us winning the match, but we somehow managed to do it. And then...
Well, this is the whole question. Was it deserved or was it undeserved? Because I kind of feel a little bit like you have to say it's undeserved when you're the architects of your downfall.
Yeah.
When you have a player who's doing some real negative playmaking like Kieran Westwood did. So, I don't know. It is a difficult one. I mean, definitely for our attacking play, some of the forward stuff we played today was yesterday was fantastic. So, we really should have got the win for that. Like I said, there were just 2 moments we just completely let ourselves down.
But isn't it crazy to be in a position, 2 years ago, we would not be in this position where it's almost like we need to outscore how bad Westwood is at being a goalkeeper.
I know.
That's what it comes down to. 2 goals in a tight game against a team that's top of the league should probably be enough to win the match for us.
Exactly. We scored 2 goals in the second half. And for a team like us with one of the better defensive records in the league, albeit we've conceded 4 goals in the last 2 games now, we should have seen it out.
And people do talk about game management, and I think we did completely lose our heads. It felt like I didn't see the Blackburn game, so I can't sort of speak to that in the same terms. But it did. I mean, the place went, obviously Hillsborough went wild when we scored that second goal. And we've also, to chase the match, we've got a team on the pitch that is not set up to defend a lead.
No.
There's no defensive cohesion there.
That would be a bit of a shame of a thing that I'm thinking about kind of personalities we're missing on the pitch. Do you think if we had someone like Hutchinson, that would have made a difference?
He certainly had. Burner and Hutchinson are 2 massive characters that we didn't have yesterday, and we didn't have them last week either, did we?
No.
So they're 2 massive characters that have been missing during these kind of heady, wild moments. Sorry, I'm just gonna Hutchinson. Oh no, they both played against Blackburn. Sorry, so we can't blame that. I can't blame that in the same way. They're just as much at fault as anyone else.
But it felt like I think the thing that we're kind of identifying and underlining with this chat, Rich, is that we are definitely missing characters who can. I mean, I think this is the difficult thing, especially when you're looking at the fact that you talk about that third substitution, bringing in a very attacking side with little kind of cohesive defensive mentality throughout that team.
Yes, but then that's the I think we'd all want to roll that dice, wouldn't we? We'd all rather be
completely,
we'd all rather chase the game and try and win than
in the 91st minute with 95 minutes on the clock. It's impeccably slow. It's not like we're 1-0 up and we've got like 15 minutes left.
No.
So
I think how much we kind of think about this, and we kind of, it is very much inexcusable that we threw away this game.
I suppose what I'm saying is, in terms of we talk game management, but how do you manage a senior pro doing what he did today?
Yeah.
No game plan is based on, and by the way, at some point, our 34-year-old goalkeeper who has spent his whole career at Premier League level before he came to us, at some point he's going to, run around the penalty area like he's an idiot and let them score a free header. And that's kind of what's happened in both games. Anyway.
So I guess the question I'm wondering about and thinking about now is, I'm always intrigued, especially, talking about footballers and how this kind of works out. But the fact that they're now going into an international break, and typically the players seem to have like 3 or 4 days off, don't they, or something like that?
Yes. Yeah.
I think there was, I heard some like post-match interview with Bannon or pre-match interview where he said he was going to some kind of short trip to some, mini sunny tropical clime with his
Dubai or somewhere like that.
Something like that, yeah. But anyway, when they kind of next come back in, I'm curious, like, what is the action going to be for using Westwood? Because unless we see a really bold claim, and that we maybe see Westwood benched for a little bit, and that we maybe see Dawson come in, or how do you proceed with this old dog?
I know one of the recurring themes on social media is, for the last couple of weeks has been, what if Dawson had been the one that had made those mistakes? And I think there would have been a lot more outward criticism of Dawson. For me, it's really tricky because I don't have a lot of faith in Dawson.
No. But
I may well be getting to the point in my mind where I'd probably rather see him given the chance than Westwood. Something seems to be a bit broken with Westwood at the moment.
Yeah.
And whether that's something that he can work through, I mean, he's a tremendously, in the past, he's been a tremendously sort of mentally strong character. But at this point in time, he's a liability. And I never thought we'd be in this position. But here we are. You can point to games now where the goalkeeper has cost us. And he used to be the guy that saved our bacon, all those wonderful records of record numbers of clean sheets and things like that. He was such a big part of those.
I know.
And he still seems to be a very good shot stopper. When those moments where it's react, make yourself big. He's still very good at those, but he's struggling at set pieces and seems to be struggling in terms of just organising his, communicating with his defence. I think one of the things I've noticed since Monk has come in is the talking. People talk more. It's really quite nice to see people sort of Atty's organising the front line. Kieran Lee was organising the midfield, and then Iorfa, it happened to be, was talking to the other defenders. So there's kind of like captains within each team on the pitch. And those are nice things to see. They're talking things through, they're discussing how to do things better. That's a good thing to have. But at the same time, one of our better communicators in Kieran Westwood seems to not be communicating as well with his defenders as he's done previously. I don't think that Morgan Fox is one of these rare people that only speaks Welsh. So presumably if you yell at him that he should leave the ball, he's going to do it. Anyway, so we can catch up. It's the international break again. We're still close. To me, the season is more and more feeling like, we've got this promise from Nixon that potentially there's 3 loans we might be able to have. That's feeling like the January transfer window is feeling like a pivot moment for the season for us. And if we can keep where we are within kind of nibbling distance of the teams that are challenging, potentially those 2 or 3 players could make a really big difference to us. I think maybe one of the things to look at next week in the international break is what what would be our ideal. Maybe not naming names, but where would we want them to play, those 3 players? Just to, flag up a potential segment. But I do wonder whether we need to look at a goalkeeper. It's really hard for someone to just drop in the middle of the season. But if we could get I'm just thinking, we've always had very good goalkeepers. I think in most of my time as a Wednesday fan, and occasionally we've had incredibly good goalkeepers. But people like Lee Grant, Scott Carson, even Ruddy was really good for the time he was with us. If there is somebody sat on a Premier League bench, or not even getting on the bench, because sometimes that's the case.
Yeah.
If there's somebody who's like the next top draw one of the next top draw goalkeepers, and they're available, I would grab them and put them in. I know it's a big call. I know there would be a lot of pressure on that player, but seeing the impact that having a really top draw goalkeeper can have on you as a team, it would be worth it if it works. And the worst case scenario is we end up back with Dawson or Westwood and fill in the slot. And unfortunately, we've got an expensive substitute. But I doubt that would be the situation. I just remember Carson coming in, Scott Carson, and the whole team was able to play 20, 30 yards further forward because not only did we have a good goalkeeper we could rely on, but he was quick off his line. So he was able to play that kind of sweeper keeper role, and it just made the whole team better. And you sort of think, well, goalkeepers shouldn't have that much of an impact, but a good goalkeeper can. I don't know. It's hard. Westwood has been so good. Tremendous value for the free transfer that he was, but it's just increasingly feeling like this was maybe a season too far.
Yeah, I know.
Or it might be a mental thing. As I said, I'm holding out the option that it might be that he's being asked to do things he's just not comfortable with, and maybe that's something that can be changed. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm glad we got to another international break. I think we saw improvements last time, and hopefully we'll see another set of improvements. It also hopefully gives us a chance to get some of those absent players back, because I do really, really feel like Luongo is going to be, the more we can get him playing, the better the season is going to feel as well. So do we want to go through and do some ratings?
Yeah, let's kind of run through that kind of fairly quickly. Just the interest of time. Westwood, 5, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe a 5.5. I don't know. The interesting thing is, the score is 2-2. He is 2 and 2 in terms of decent saves that kept us in the game, and 2 absolute clangers. So yeah, I don't know how much that kind of undercuts. I think a 5 or a 5.5 kind of gives a little bit of kudos still to someone who had a bad day at the office. But yeah, how many bad days, how many bad days you have at the office?
For me, it's a 5. It's a 5 because, yes, he made saves and they're good saves, but you'd hope a goalkeeper makes at least one of those 2 really good saves. I would hope most goalkeepers would make. I do think the one before the corner is exceptional. I think that was a really tremendous reaction. So that one there's a little bit of kudos for that, but it's washed away by, we did not need to concede the goals we conceded today. And that is the fault of the goalkeeper. Yeah. Okay. Liam Palmer?
I'm getting a bit biased here because I was curious again, as brought to you by Who Scored. I was seeing what they kind of said. How did I feel Palmer did? I can't really remember much of Palmer. I remember he didn't embarrass himself. I think he did fine. Is a 7 maybe a bit too much, or is more of a 6.5 performance?
I think either of those is fine. I suppose it partly depends how you feel about the performance overall. If you thought it was a really decent performance, then I think he was as much a part of it as just about anybody else.
Which, it was. It was just...
Yeah. So he maybe deserves a 7.
I guess there's the interesting thing, and as we go into player rings, I'm curious, how the defense isn't completely let off the hook for this.
No.
But really, the major culprit in this is Westwood.
Yeah. Well, let's should we cut it down the middle? Give him a 6.75.
6.75. I love it. Yeah, the first 3/4 rating we've had on the pod. Sounds great.
Big Dominic Iorfa.
He was really good as usual.
I made a note of a particular delight in watching him as centre back, and it reminds me of something like Blue Planet, a wildlife program where. So it's the moments where an attacking player has the audacity to take possession of the football in isolation from the rest of the field. And it is like watching a kind of docile bison or some other kind of herd animal kind of going about its business. And then just in the background, seeing this leopard bounding towards it with this kind of grace and strength and power, and it's like, you are gonna get smashed, mate, and you don't even know what's coming because he's bounded about half the pitch width towards them. Oh, it's so good. He did it to Ayew 2 or 3 times yesterday, and it was just so delightful to watch. And he wins the ball. He doesn't give away a foul, but it's just like, he's like, Ayew brings the ball down. He's getting himself sorted, having a look where the rest of the teammates are. All the while, the impending attack is coming behind him. Oh, it's gorgeous. I love Dominic Iorfa at centre back.
7.5 or an 8?
Yeah.
Dare venture an 8. I think he's probably one of the better players today.
I think I'd go along with an 8 because he had a couple of little jaunts forward as well, which I also really love. Are you getting more comfortable with those, Luke, or is it still?
It's becoming natural. It's not something that it's not like my buttocks clench every time I see him darting forward these days. I think it's just remarkable how, for a player that we were like, we're not sure about centre back, just how comfortable he is. There's just so much comfort there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's sort of who plays with. It's kind of who plays with Iorfa, isn't it now?
Yeah, and I would probably then say the answer is Burner, which brings us on to the return of Tom Lees,
who did all right.
He was fine. He was okay. He didn't ever really embarrass himself. I don't really remember a great deal of what he did. I remember him kind of putting 1 or 2 passes around the back.
Yeah, it's marked.
That's all I kind of remembered from Lees.
It is marked how. The gulf in sort of how comfortable players are on the ball at the back there. Tom Lees is certainly kind of leagues behind Burner and Iorfa. Really kind of twitchy in possession, and I think Tom Lees likes to have a picture of where the ball's going to go. So if he receives it, he wants to know, he likes a clear picture of where it's going next. He doesn't want to dawdle on it. He just wants to move it along to that next person. But when that option is then shut down, he really freaks out. That's when we see, the times he's been caught kind of spinning round and round. It's when those options get closed off because he's already picked. It's like, when I get the ball, it's going to Fox. And then he looks up and Fox is marked. Then he's like, oh, crap, where does the ball go now? And it didn't land us in any problems, but it was just one of those things you're like, that is a big difference in terms of just... It's one of those qualities that, for all the qualities he has, Tom Lees, it's one of those that he lacks, unfortunately. But a pretty decent meat and potatoes sort of performance. 6.5 or 7? Where did you put him?
I think a 6.5 is about right. I don't think he did quite enough to earn a 7. He didn't embarrass himself. It wasn't a 6. That's about right.
And then Morgan Alexander Fox.
Me and Morgan Fox share a middle name. Fantastic. That's good to know. I like him. I like him even more. I can't say why. I can't put my finger on it, Rich. Even though Morgan is a pretty terrible first name, I want to say.
It's a second name, isn't it?
It really is.
I see what you've done there is you've got a second name as your first name. You've messed up there.
Do you think you want to call him Fox Morgan?
Oh, I like Fox Morgan.
Yeah, sounds like a kind of Welsh detective.
I was thinking, sort of noir detective, or maybe sort of a commander of a slightly janky spaceship.
Portrayed by Nathan Fillion.
Yes, it's exactly who I pictured, in fact.
Stuff, and that's who I want at left back. But
with a proper Welsh accent.
You're reminding me of the stunted cinematic career of Ian Grufford. Remember Ian Grufford?
I don't remember Ian Grufford. No.
Remember he was in the 2 Fantastic Four films. He played the main character.
Oh, I would call him Johan Griffith.
Johan Griffiths, is that what you call him?
Yeah. That's proper
Anyway.
Welsh, see?
Morgan Fox, Foxy.
Morgan Fox. What
Fox
are we?
Morgan, FAM, which is initials.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So he did make an error that led to the corner, which was there to the first goal.
Yeah.
That's something that I don't think we can kind of forget, you know?
I think you're right.
Getting close to Remembrance Sunday. Sorry. But lest we never forget that Morgan Fox made an error.
This is where the podcast gets cancelled.
Oh, yes. I think just me getting cancelled. I think you'll be fine.
All the poo talk.
Then maybe you don't come off of it so well for associating me with me in the first place. That's another story completely. But you know, like, he was very good. It's outside of that kind of blip. Again, it's crazy to think that he's just making this left back slot pretty much his own.
Do you know, whilst we're so a very good performance overall, I think probably deserves something like 7.5.
Yeah.
I was also frustrated he didn't gamble on Fletcher's shot that hit the post, because Fox was just kind of stood watching it, and I sort of was, even on the replay, you know, watching it the third or fourth time, I'm begging him to throw himself at it or stick a foot at it or something, because it's sort of asking for him to react in some way. And he just kind of watches it bounce off the post and bounce away again. It's a bit frustrating. If he'd shown the same, grab life by the balls type leanings as he showed when he gave away the corner we didn't need to concede from, we probably would have had a goal a lot earlier. That's harsh, because he's not a striker by any chalk. But just seeing how beautifully he took his chance later on in the day, it just brings back that fresh frustration.
7.5?
I think 7.5.
7.5.
He scored what should have been the winner.
Yeah. And then that was annoying that there was such a disruption to that storyline. You know, that October Player of the Month, former Boo Boy, Morgan Fox wins the day. Totally. Fox Morgan wins the day.
I love Fox Morgan. I love it so much. Right.
So moving forward to the midfield, because pretty much a flat 4-4-2. Pretty much. Mr. Jacob Murphy.
Jacob Murphy.
Jacob.
I thought he did well.
Very good. Very good. I really want to see more of this Jacob Murphy that we've seen, and not the imposter Jacob Murphy that we've seen in previous games.
Yes. Yeah, that would be ideal.
This is a bit more of the character and the person who I think people would have looked at and said that we signed him, and some of the more generous characters would have said that's a brilliant signing and one that's really going to make the difference for Sheffield Wednesday. Some people definitely said those things. Mm-hmm.
I thought he carried a threat pretty much every time he had the ball. He did get tired after an hour, and he put in a couple of pretty poor crosses after that. But by and large, his set pieces were pretty decent. He was moving the ball forward well, and he took a good number of shots, and two of them were fairly decent. He had the deflected one that could easily have been a goal if the keeper wasn't paying as close attention as he was, and his one against the post, as we said, he struck it really, really well, very cleanly. Just unfortunately, it hit the post and bounced out again. And another day, it's literally the case of maybe being a centimetre further left, and it goes in. And we're talking about what a precise, brilliant finish it was. So I think probably a 7. But
I think that's very fair. It was very much a 7 out of 10 performance from him.
Yeah. But much, much more like the sort of thing you want to see from him. Much more pleasing and hopeful. It was good to see. Kieran Lee.
So I don't know why I think I was just a little bit distracted for a second. Sorry. I was thinking about something else. Kieran Lee, I don't know why I was just giving a very sharp intake of breath. Kieran Lee was very, very good. This is some of the best Kieran Lee I think we've seen in a while. Yeah. This is better than even the beginning of the season Kieran Lee, which looked like it had a bit of promise about him. This was just everything I feel like Kieran Lee does best. Just maybe without a goal, but I mean, he got that assist. He did. Him bursting forward and just having
just again, that radar and the timing to arrive at that was just perfect. And I wondered whether he kind of scuffed it across, but the more you kind of look back, it was more the right weight.
It was. No, it was perfect.
To just keep the ball in play and bring it back onto Forestieri to just meet it and just nick there, and that's all you really need, really.
Definitely. No, it was really, really nice to see.
The only criticism I'd give, he was lucky to stay on the pitch, actually.
He was, yes, because he followed up his yellow card with another challenge, pretty short order.
The referee was fine yesterday. He was okay. Maybe one of the better referees, but not a sterling performance, even so. Maybe a 6.5 performance from a referee, but still a hell of a lot better than some of the other referees would say. So I know, and obviously in the first half, Nuyu was hauled down at one point, was pulled down by his shirts. But I don't think the referee wants to make any big kind of controversial decisions. And I think the finer point that held for us, even though he didn't give any yellows to any of the Swansea players any times, he kept Kieran Lee on the pitch in that case, because he got a soft yellow to start with, from what I kind of recall. But then the one he followed up, since he was on a yellow, probably should have been a second yellow.
Yes, yeah.
So that was a bit of a downside of his game. The one bit in the first half, actually, he was kind of, I'm surprised I didn't see it in the highlights package. I would like to see it again, even on extended highlights. He kind of ran into the box and he tried a very weak cross when, I felt this, and Pearson and Rob O'Neill on the commentary said he should have put his foot through that.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do remember that.
So, and not that I think Kieran Lee would be someone who would even produce a Marco van Basten finish of Fox Morgan standards. But that was a mild down point. But the rest of the time he was busy. He got in. I know he kind of did a few bits. It was just kind of getting in the ball in around the box and to the byline and just kind of cycling the ball in a positive way.
Yeah.
And it really just makes a difference. And that's really what we've missed with missing Kieran Lee. And having him back and providing a performance like this gives me some real hope that there's more to come from him in the future. He did look a bit tired. Do you think he looked a bit tired?
I agree. No, I do. I think he's. But then I think also he naturally, as we threw more purely attack-minded players on, his role shifted, that he couldn't be quite as gung-ho going forward as well.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of both. It did make me wonder whether, because the three that he's played in previously with Hutchinson and Bannon and Hutch have very defined roles in that three. Bannon is trying to keep up with the attacking players and make things happen at that kind of, the living end. And Hutch is trying to sit deep and close off channels and, to do his Hutchy defendy thing. Whereas Kieran Lee's role in that, as the third man in that, is a bit less. It's a bit less obvious what you're there to do and what your job is. And I wonder whether, for all of Monk's talk of he's spoken about not overwhelming players and kind of getting information across to them. I wonder if maybe Kieran Lee had suffered from being a bit overwhelmed by the options that were presented to him in that, as that third, almost a spare man in the three-man midfield. Yeah. And today he had a clear job, and particularly second half, and he just relished getting on with it and getting about doing that task. Maybe, I don't know. We don't know. It's all speculation, but it did make me wonder whether that because the idea of being that third player in midfield is you're saving us from getting outnumbered in situations, but you're also trying to participate in outnumbering the opposition in situations. But it means you're asked to be six of one, half a dozen the other, and maybe that just doesn't suit him. It's too nebulous in terms of a kind of job of work for the 90 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking score wise?
Definitely a 7.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more. No, I think a 7's about right.
Yeah, and I'd say almost the same for Bannon.
What, a 7 for Bannon?
Maybe. Yeah.
I think that's 6.5. I thought it was one of his quieter games.
You might be right.
So this was the interesting thing was I almost felt maybe I'm getting a little bit of short-term memory loss and amnesia here. Obviously he didn't play last week.
Bannon didn't know.
But it felt like maybe it's the comfort of Bannon is that he can kind of come back in, and even if he's not 100% up to speed, it kind of feels like he hasn't left.
Yeah.
weird way, because I kind of was there thinking, oh, this is like the second game back from injury for Bannon. And I'm like, oh no, it's actually the first time we've seen Bannon, because we didn't see him last week at Blackburn. Yeah, a little bit quieter than usual. I think 6.5 seems fair for my opinion. Had some good set pieces. God, the set pieces were so much better this week than they were at Blackburn.
Much better.
Much better. It was just leagues apart. It really was.
Yeah.
That was some real Evo stick Premier League stuff last week. It was some real Beezer Holmes type stuff.
Oh yeah.
Any other sponsors for any non-league outfits you can remember? Just put one of those names in.
Vanarama,
yeah.
Vanarama set pieces. Yes. Oh. No. I that was a big difference. And as we talked about, maybe on another day, probably would have produced a goal or two from those much better set pieces. Then we've got Kadeem Harris. I wanted to call him Calvin Harris for some reason there, but I won't. Kadeem Harris.
I mean, he isn't born in the 80s as well. You know, it's a bit young. So.
1993.
Calvin Harris.
Calvin Harris.
He was taking a break from making the next Smash Top 40 hits and to put a fairly underwhelming performance in on the wing for Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, he did have that nice little cross, but other than that, it's pretty hard to see what he did, to be honest, today.
Yeah, this is probably the weakest game I think we've seen from Harris. And yet, how refreshing is it that we're not a one-man team and that we have other players who, when they play at their best and when they step up, we don't always need to rely on Calvin Harris.
Yes. So would you say 6.5 or 6?
Let's be 6.5. Let's be generous, because I mean it's still Harris, and I think that's the funny thing. Even him having in the team, the theory should be is if they're putting players on him, if they're doubling up or tripling up on him, then it should be giving us space to do magic elsewhere on the pitch. So,
and I do think Murphy benefited from the extra attention that was given to Harris. I think it meant Murphy had more room, had room to cut in several times as well. So yeah, we saw that in effect, definitely. Okay, Ati Nuyu.
Oh, Nuyu was very, very good. This was one of the best Nuyu performances. I want to go with a 7.5 for Nuyu. I was a little bit disappointed when he went off. I felt we probably had still a bit more in store from Nuyu, even though I guess up to that point it hadn't merited a goal.
Yeah, he had that one bizarre flying header where he was almost like scraping his face along the floor to head it. You're like, you've got feet. You know that, Ati.
Do you remember in the first 20 minutes, I think he had that chance on the 18th and 19th minute where he just got the ball and then, you remember the game against Preston?
Yeah.
Not last season, the season before, where Nuyu just decided to just evoke the spirit of Lionel Messi and took it past a few players before curling into the corner. And he nearly did the same again, yesterday. He had that chance on the edge of and he just bent it just wide.
Yeah, that was lovely effort.
Lovely effort and finish. And he had some great feet work. Great feet for a big man, as the platitude usually goes.
That's what they say.
Because we forget that they're professional footballers,
It is one of those, every single time you watch a game on Sky, they go, even though he's tall, he's actually probably even better with the ball at his feet. But yeah, I mean, one, that's because he's not very good at heading, and two, that's what he's all about, is the feet. No, it was is nice to see from Ati. And as I say, if we could rely on that sort of a performance, you could build a team around that sort of a performance. You could, or at least certain performances. Mm-hmm. Certain game plans could be built around that kind of a performance, and that's really nice because it certainly wasn't the case for the whole of last season. So then we've got Stephen Fletcher.
What do we? I don't know. I don't know how to broach the Fletcher issue.
Not that he was bad. I don't know how good he was. Not that he was terrible. Not that he was not. He was good. He was good. I just don't know what shade of good he was.
Necessarily, he wasn't as busy as he's been, but that was the whole point of playing him alongside Nuyu. To be more of a striker, to be on those margins. What he didn't do was take the chances when they came his way, which would have changed it from not just for himself, but for a team performance, would have made it all seem we could have easily won yesterday 3-1, and all those goals would have been Fletcher. And that game, you go, oh, well, Stephen Fletcher was asked to play striker, and he did it brilliantly. I mean, he still won more headers than Nuyu, even though he wasn't supposed to be doing that. But I think it's fair. He had much less of an impact. I'd maybe be tempted to sort of go towards
6.5.
Yeah, something like that for him.
Yeah.
The other thing, neither of them were helped by, and sorry to, I hate belaboring this point, but aside from the goalkeeping errors, Westwood's kicking was pretty terrible yesterday, and he went through a sort of 20-minute or so period in the second half where they were barely getting over the halfway line, which gave neither Nuyu nor Fletcher any chance to win the headers. It was almost just passing possession straight back to Swansea because he was just getting no length on them at all. I don't know whether that was weather conditions or what, but it was painful at times how little we could rely on the ball coming out from the back with any great consistency, which didn't help either Atty or Fletcher. So I think 6.5 is fair enough. Should we whiz through the subs in the order that they came on? So Forestieri came on 66th minute.
7.
Yeah, he scored, but he didn't do anything else. I don't even remember him touching the ball other than scoring.
He had actually for the corner, he got the shot that led to the corner, which I think he wisped slightly.
Yes,
he kind of
you're
fluffed
right.
that one, but outside of that, I don't remember anything else that he did on the pitch.
And he was
he still scored.
Yeah, I mean, he did score. That's and you know, we talked about Fletcher. That's the if you're the striker, that's what you're supposed to do. That's the thing you're judged on. Same as being a goalkeeper. You know, you've got a pretty singular job on that pitch. So maybe a 7 for Forestieri because he got
7 because I think he showed enough in that moment to, you know, have a good positioning to get on the end of Lee's, you know, to be quick enough and react quick enough to get there to just put the little finish on it, to just put it wide of the keeper.
I do think he's still looks miles off the sort of player we need him to be. But anyway, today he did what he needed to do. Adam Reach.
Reach is an interesting one. What do I think about Reach?
Obviously played a part in the first goal.
Played a very good part. It was a nice shot that he kind of rasped in with his left foot, you know, just kind of drifting in from the right and then just unleashing.
Yeah.
And it led to the goal, so I think we need something from that. Maybe a 7? A 7.
I think
Generous.
that's
6.
fair enough. 6.75.
6.75.
6.75. Okay, let's go for it. That's our new favourite score now.
Yeah.
I think, again, he didn't do very much outside of that, particularly. There was a couple of crosses, but neither of them were very good. He had a bit of time and space to put crosses in, I remember. And then finally, Jordan Rhodes.
Probably a 6 for Rhodes. Well, it's probably the best we've seen from Rhodes. So.
But I think 6 being the best we've seen from him is a fair score and says a lot about what it's been, what life has been like. Okay. So that's us, really. We're into the international break. We remain pretty close to those playoff places. 3 points off the playoff places. That's it, really, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
we will again. We'll do something different in the international break next week. You may have picked up a little bit of what that might be in terms of looking at those potentially those 3 arrivals. The only other thing I just wanted to just capture on the podcast, Luke. You know, we're always looking to grow the number of people. You know, it's nice that people seem to be enjoying the podcast. It'd be even nicer if a few more folks listened. So I was listening to the 1000th episode of the WTF podcast, Mark Maron's podcast, for tips, but also with a sense of nostalgia, which is because it's where both of our sort of joint journeys with podcasting began. Mm-hmm. And the guests that really jumped them up to the next level were Robin Williams and Barack Obama. Now, you're obviously based in North America, so I just thought in terms of those particular guests, I thought I'd just put it out there and just say, you know what you need to do. Just
cool.
lay the gauntlet.
I'm blowing the dust off the Ouija board right now, Rich. And, should have some hot takes on Sheffield Wednesday from the late the late great Robin Williams.
Is he? He's not one of those bizarre Wednesday fans, was he?
No, but I feel like maybe Jermaine Jackson had his ear at some point, and who knows? Maybe it's slightly taken. It's not like Hugh Jackman who sports Norwich, right?
That's pretty random. Rivers Cuomo or Cuomo from Weezer.
As pictured in a Wednesday shirt, the story is that when they played Leadmill in Sheffield in the early 90s, around the time of their first album, and as they're big soccer fans, they were taken to a game at S6, and they all got a shirt with a favourite player on the back afterwards, and Rivers Cuomo may still have a 93 Sheffield Wednesday shirt from the prime Sheffield Wednesday team with Waddle on the back.
Beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, yeah. So, there's a few options for you there.
Okay, thanks. I'll see what I can do there, Rich.
But other than that, I'll say cheerio. Have a good week.
Have a good week, Rich.